Okay, cool. Yeah, it says it's streaming now. So then, yeah, if you can click on Aaron and make him host,
Yep.
I think that should work. Okay, cool. Yeah, it says it's streaming now.
Great.
So then, yeah, if you can click on Aaron and make him host,
Yep.
I think that should work. Okay, cool. Yeah, it says it's streaming now.
Great. I will disappear. Get out of your way. I'm glad this worked out.
Cool. Thank you.
Do you anticipate this to be 2 hours?
45 minutes for the president, a 10-minute break in between, and then 45 minutes for the vice president. So,
thank you.
Yep. I think the daily said 7-ish questions per. Right, Aaron? Is that what this is?
Yes, 7 to 8, I think.
Yeah.
Cool.
Do you know if Brittany's going to be joining, or?
I think she is.
Okay.
I haven't heard otherwise.
Okay. Also, do we know if we can be live and then also record it on Zoom, or is that going to mess things up? I'm wondering.
I can look it up.
Sorry, was that question for me? The live?
Oh, it was just for anyone because I'm not sure how the live function works.
I think you should be able to record it. Okay. I also am pretty sure the stream will save. I'm actually not too positive. I'll look it up, but the stream might just save to YouTube, and I could get that to you also. I can check on that right now, though.
Okay, thanks. Hi, Jasmine.
Hello.
Hopefully the candidates start showing up soon.
All right. Yeah.
I think that a recording of the stream will save to YouTube, like in my own files after, so I can forward those to you if you want.
Okay, that works. So Aaron, you don't have to worry about hitting record then.
Okay, great.
We don't mess up YouTube stuff. Kayla, did I already ask? Is Brittany going to be able to join? I can't recall.
I haven't heard that she wouldn't be, so I'm assuming yes.
Okay, just making sure. Hi, Brittany. How's it going? Jasmine, do you know when Alex will be joining? Is he going to be joining in a few minutes, just so we can go over the process and everything? Hi, Alex.
Hi, how are you?
Good. So I had a few quick questions before we get started. Do you all have the questions that you're going to be asking already?
Yes.
Okay.
And we have printed copies.
Okay, perfect. Aaron is the director of Michigan Debate and will be the moderator, and we'll refer to you for the questions.
All right, thank you so much.
And will it be both Jasmine and Alex asking questions, or one of the two, or a combination of both of you?
Yes, we're going to rotate.
Okay.
Jasmine is starting the presidents, and I'm starting the vice presidents.
Okay, good to know.
And then we'll just ask if you're not a candidate to just turn off your camera and audio and let the Daily and Aaron kind of take it from here.
I think we have everybody, all the candidates, and
yes, I believe all of the presidential candidates are here. So
okay, then I will get started. All right, everybody, I'd like to welcome everyone to the 2021 CSG presidential and vice presidential debates. It's great that we're able to have them this year, even online. I don't believe we were able to do this last year in March at this time. Very briefly, I'd just like to explain the format and the rules of the two debates. First is going to be the presidential debate, which will be 45 minutes long. We're going to have a 10-minute break, and then we'll have the vice presidential debate, which will also be 45-minute long, and we'll conclude after that. In each of the two debates, there's going to be 3 candidates, and each candidate will have 90 seconds for an opening statement. And we have 2 reporters from the Michigan Daily that will be asking questions to all the candidates. We hope to get in about 7 to 8 questions per debate. And each candidate will get to answer every question, and they'll have 1 minute to answer each question. I'll be in charge of determining the speaker order for the statements and the asking of questions, and I'm going to make sure that rotates equitably for everyone, so they'll have all different opportunities to give their statements and answer questions. And that, I believe, is everything of the rules. First, before I get to the candidates, I'd like to thank Jasmine Lee from the Michigan Daily, who will be asking the questions for the presidential debate, and Alex Herring from the Michigan Daily as well, that will be asking the questions for the vice presidential debate. Like to introduce all 3 candidates before we get to the opening statements. First is Nithya Arun. is a junior studying community and global public health from suburban Chicago, Palatine. He'll be running for president of Central Student Government as part of the Impact Party. Our second presidential candidate is Soo-Jin Kim, a third year majoring in political science with a minor in history of law and policy, representing the Organized Party, and from Mount Laurel, New Jersey. Our final presidential candidate is Abner Santiago, a junior in LSA, majoring in financial math, and am representing the Change Party. Abner was raised in Santa Monica, California. Before we get on to the questions and opening statements, as many of you saw, President Schlissel expressed his deepest sympathies for those who are grieving after another murderous attack, which recently resulted in the deaths of 8 people in Atlanta. 6 of the dead are of Asian descent and 7 were women. And before we start the debate, we'd like to have a moment of silence to pay tribute to this attack. All right, well, thank you everybody for that. And we will start now with the candidate opening statements. Each candidate has 90 seconds, and by order of the draw, Nithya will be first with their 90-second opening statement.
Hello, my name is Nithya Arun. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm a junior studying community and global public health. And finally, I'm running to serve as the president of CSG. This last year has taken a terrible toll on our students, mentally, physically, and financially, and this has triggered many anxieties surrounding the university's fall 2021 reopening plans. As a public health student paired with an engineer, we aim to adopt a holistic approach to supporting my fellow students through this difficult time. I have 3 years worth of CSG experience. I began as an ex officio member, charged by President Green to represent the freshman students' interests in CSG. I then served as a policy advisor under 2 presidents, and I learned how executive power can be used to fight for students on multiple fronts. In that time, I worked alongside administrators to extend the hours of a bus service to increase Oxford Residence Hall student accessibility to Central Campus. I established a working group to expand access to menstrual products, designed and distributed a survey that led to the establishment of the PNRC grading system, and created a $25,000 fund to help students pay for everyday expenses like rent and food. If elected, I will work alongside our diverse team of students with over 25 years of CSG experience between them to establish a fund to help them cover medical bills and childcare, launch a bus service to grocery stores, increase funding for SAPAC, and enable more graduate students to hire undergraduate research assistants. I'm thrilled to be here on this call today and look forward to highlighting how Carla and I will impact Michigan. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next opening statement is Soo-Jin.
Sorry, I had to find my unmute button. Hi, my name is Soo-Jin. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a third year in LSA studying political science and history. This is my 3rd CSG election cycle, and I honestly never thought that I would be somebody who was doing the debate. So I am really excited to be here tonight with Sam and with the rest of our team and to share what we are here to fight for. So a little bit about myself. I've been in CSG since my first month at university. I served as chair of both the ethics and the resolutions committee during that time. And this past year, I served as the legislative advisor on the executive team. So my primary focus on campus is research. Generally, I study systems of power and how they impact American government. This work informs my goals in CSG, but so do my lived experiences at this university. And I've had some of the best and also some of the most challenging times of my life in Ann Arbor, as I'm sure most of us have. And through these experiences, I've learned that the best advocates for students are invariably and always other students. And I am happy and I'm excited to be doing that work. And I want to run for the CSG executive with my team, with Sam, because I want to apply what I've learned over the years through research and as a CSG member. And on behalf of the community and the students here at Michigan, I'm just really excited to get to work about that. So I'm excited to get to work. I'm excited to share with you all tonight what our team stands for. And I just want to say thank you all for being here and for giving us your time.
Thank you. And the following and the final opening statement is Abner.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Abner, and I'm from Santa Monica, California. As our host said, I am majoring in financial math in LSNA, but but I didn't always start there. I started my career coming into Michigan through the Ross program. And through many difficult encounters and challenges, destiny played a role in deciding that I needed to change my major, and financial math seemed the way to go. And what I mean by that is my freshman year, I decided to join ROTC, and that played a huge role in my development throughout my college career, as they focused on huge diversity, equity, and inclusion opportunities and teaching lessons. And so that led to me being very involved in ROTC, and ultimately it ended up picking up my career path in the Space Force. Throughout my journey at Ross, I also partook in a program called Ross Summer Connections, who helped me grow and develop as a person and as a mentor. It opened the doors to land a job at the Office for Undergraduate Admissions, where I continually meet new people every single day. That being said, I believe the future of the university lies in those that come into it. And so by having a role in helping those reach the university, they can create a better environment year after year. So the reason I want to run is to give hope to those that are coming in, to let them know that their voices are also being represented, as well as those that maybe didn't have the opportunity of belonging to CSG since freshman year. And so I believe my team and I can do that.
All right, that is time. And I'm going to ask Jasmine now to ask the first question. And Abner will be first once the question is asked.
Hi, thank you, Aaron. So our first question for tonight is about anti-policing on campus. So this summer's racial awakening with the murder of George Floyd and other incidents has opened the eyes of many people about the rampant racism and police brutality that's been occurring in the United States. In the GEO strike, their demand for the defunding of DPSs was not met. Each CSG campaign has included anti-racism and DEI processes in their initiatives. How has anti-policing fit into this? And how were your plans shaped by this summer's reckoning on racial justice and the GEO's demand for a redirection of DPSS funds during their strike in the fall?
Abner, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. So obviously what we've seen is not representative of the entire police force, but it is something that we need to take into account. I mean, we can't deny systemic racism and the things that are going on throughout this nation. So my team and I are going to be focusing on such things that need to be addressed. So that is cutting ties with DPSS in terms of reworking how they work within the university. So maybe it involves community outreach, maybe it involves social media presence, or maybe it involves more student representation within DPSS. But as of right now, I don't know what those plans hold for DPS integration.
Okay, next, same question for Sujin.
Thank you. So our campaign is actually proudly endorsed by GEO. We support their demands to demilitarize the UMPD and DPSS officers in the residence halls. And we are committed to working with them on this demand and with every other demand they have. But specifically about this topic on demilitarizing DPSS and addressing the police state, this shooting in Atlanta is an example of how the police state affects everybody. DPSS it's an extension of the police force. It needs to be demilitarized. It's not safe for students. Their presence isn't safe for faculty. It's not safe for staff. It's not safe for anybody in the community. And it's not the way that we should be going about addressing this question. So to circle back to the connection with GEO, we know this is a specific demand that they had that wasn't met. And we are extremely regretful about that on their behalf. We stand with them and we support their demands, and we are committed to working with them on getting this specific topic and their other demands met in the coming year. Thank you.
Okay, and finally, Nithya, same question.
Thank you for that question, Jasmine. You know, it almost seems like every day I open up Twitter or any other social media account, I'm met with news about violence that has affected marginalized communities. And I I completely empathize with those afflicted by those who were affected this week in the instances in Georgia, as well as the Black community who have been subject to this violence for so long. With that being said, in our platform, we hope to partner with GEO to demand the disarmament of AAPD and DPSS. Every student has a right to feel secure and safe on campus, and we will make sure that happens. As a public health scholar, we are also taught that data drives good policy. So I am a research associate with the Office for Health Equity and Inclusion, and there's an ongoing study that discusses adverse police effects on students, and we will be utilizing their help to convince administrators to drive policy to disarm AAPD and DPSS.
All right, thank you. And now to Jasmine for question number 2.
Hi, so according to U of M's International Center, just under 14% of the student body in fall 2020 are international students. In recent years, a $500 fee unique to international students was imposed and widely criticized. Some international students have had to defer enrollments due to delays in obtaining visas from the State Department. With COVID, it has become even more difficult than ever for international students to attend this university. They faced unfulfilled threats from the Trump administration that they would not be allowed back in the US last fall if they were not in at least one in-person class. Students from Asia and the Pacific Islands, which make up a large percentage of international students, have also been the target of increased acts of racism in recent months. How will your administration work to remove barriers to success for international students and ensure they feel safe and supported at the university?
And for this question, Soo Jin is first. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. So we have a number of specific initiatives that we would love to implement. I would encourage people to go to the platform because I'm just realizing that a minute is like way shorter than I thought it was. But I think the two biggest things playing into that are creating an international student policy coordinator position. We think that having somebody who is only focused on this, who is clearly an expert in this policy, who is dedicated to the advocacy of this specific group of students with their specific needs, we think that's really important. And we would work to incorporate one of those positions as a paid position in the executive branch. The other thing, this has been a topic that's come up in CSG before, but we just want to reemphasize this. We need to cut the international student fee. That's a huge barrier for a lot of students. It's not equitable to require a certain group of students to be paying this over others. And that is also something that we would be dedicated to advocating. We have a number of other things in the platform that I just don't have time to get to right now. I'm sorry, but I would encourage people to check that out. Thank you.
All right, next, same question to Abner.
So I've been worked in the Office of Undergraduate Admissions. It's a constant thing for people to come in and ask, where is the I-20 Center? The I-20 Center is a place where students get their I-20 filled out, and that's primarily for international students. So I can definitely sympathize with these people and how they have to go through a very bureaucratic process just to enroll in a class. That being said, the $500 fee is definitely not equitable. It is something that, if anything, if it's a necessity, could be deferred. I see no reason as to why this needs to be a charge even for them to enroll. I understand that we need to put down an enrollment deposit, but who's to say these international students have to pay it up front before even coming to the US to enroll at Michigan? Also, I did ask a lot of international students personally how they felt with things that need to be addressed. And that was one of the very same things that they said needed to be changed, was the difficult processes for them to maintain enrollment and visa holdings.
That's time. And finally is Nithya.
First and foremost, like what Sujin and Abner said, we will campaign heavily to retract the $500 international student fee. It is wholly inequitable. Additionally, we will be appointing a chair of international student affairs in the executive branch. We will also be creating a 3-person international student task force and assembly to investigate and produce a report on the effects of the pandemic and the tuition hike on the international student body. That way we have 2 bodies working through CSG to ensure that the needs of international students are being met on campus. Finally, we will be working with interest groups such as GRIN to evaluate the university's CPT and OPT application review procedure to identify ways to accommodate emerging and unconventional career paths. We need to be utilizing these students who are affected by these issues in order to drive our policy. And that is our first aim in the policies that we have set forth.
Thank you. And now turn it over to the Michigan Daily for question number 3.
Yeah. So Central Student Government has been working on ways it can increase diversity, equity, and inclusion for student organizations by providing funding for events that support these initiatives, and also providing funds for other issues as well. This initiative was created citing a lack of diversity in selective professional-based student organizations and other issues. If elected, how will your campaign work to improve and promote DEI initiatives and student organizations?
And this time, Nithya is number 1. 1 minute.
First, we will be pushing for the expansion of Wolverine pathways alongside other groups on campus. We believe that anti-racism policies start even before a prospective student enters the University of Michigan. And we want to give every student, especially for those who come from a marginalized background, every opportunity to reap the same education that I have had the privilege of having. Secondly, we want to organize an annual research symposium led by people of color and LGBTQ+ scholars. We want to appreciate the work they've done, and we want to dismantle any sources of institutional racism that has affected these students. We touched on this before, but additionally, we want to partner with GEO to demand the disarmament of AAPD and DPSS. Security is instrumental to students being academically successful at the University of Michigan. Finally, we worked with the Students of Color Liberation Front to inform our platform, but we will continue to work with them to implement new anti-racism policies on campus.
Thank you. And next is Sujin.
Thank you. So this question was specifically about student organizations, I believe, and I think we could probably expand a little bit more in different areas, but specifically about student orgs. We would create a standing weekly meeting for representatives from racial and ethnic justice organizations. They would be meeting with our chief of staff, and the purpose of this meeting would be for students to have a direct pipeline, direct access to advocacy resources and to the CSG resources as a whole. We also, this is a little bit to the side, but we want to say improving the diversity of faculty and staff is overall the most important part of this. It starts with professors and having people of color by POC to become mentors to these students, to become mentors to student org leaders, and to provide resources to students to expand diversity and access to professional organizations. We also want to expand the Go Blue guarantee to the Flint, and Dearborn campuses, which is a facet of this. And we think this is a multifaceted issue, and all of these play into the diversity and resources available to student organizations.
Okay, and finally is Abner.
So my first exposure to DEI efforts actually came before I was even enrolled at Michigan. So in the program Raw Summer Connections, at the very end, we had to undergo a case competition where the problem was reworking DEI efforts in the Ross School of Business. Now, it was apparent that students didn't really learn from the DEI efforts that were taking place in Ross. Speaking from experience, all we did was watch a module and write 500 words on how we felt about it. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't really learn anything about DEI throughout watching a 2-minute video. So I believe reworking efforts, DEI efforts throughout the schools to ensure that students actually know what these DEI efforts are, what they mean, what does it mean to be diverse, what does it mean to be equitable, and inclusive, as well as undergoing those experiences, because that's really what matters at the end of the day is experience. And so we also want to partner with current existing organizations that already know how to best tackle these problems, such as La Casa, ACIB, VSA, and multicultural fraternities and sororities. So I think the people that know from firsthand experience will be the best
That is time. All right, turn it over to Michigan Daily for question number 4.
Thanks. So earlier today, the President's Commission on Carbon Neutrality, a group tasked with finding and proposing a way forward for U of M to achieve carbon neutrality, released its findings. The report first recommended that the university use offsets, effectively meaning the university would invest in carbon sequestration efforts elsewhere to quote unquote cancel out its on-campus emissions to achieve net zero direct carbon emissions by 2025. The report then went on to recommend that the university have all carbon emissions reduced to net zero without needing these offsets, effectively meaning that there would be zero carbon emissions from campus. This report comes 2 years after student activists pressed the university to commit to fossil fuel divestment and carbon neutrality by 2030. And these activists held a sit-in requesting an unmoderated meeting about carbon neutrality with President Schlissel that led to 10 arrests. Given the university's contentious past with activists in this space, what do you see as the path forward for the university in becoming carbon neutral? Do you support the PCCN's findings?
And the first on this question is Abner.
Firstly, yeah, I do support their findings and being able to reach carbon neutrality at a faster pace. But I'm not going to lie, I'm not very knowledgeable on how to best achieve carbon neutrality. I believe this question is better and left to professionals in the field, but also students need to see an itemized copy of where their investments are heading. I understand that perhaps they're decreasing funding in companies that invest heavily in oil and fossil fuels. So I believe that the university needs to be more transparent with their investments. That's all I have to say on the matter.
All right, and next is Nithya.
This is actually a timely question because I just worked with the climate action movement to call for the complete divestment of fossil fuels. Additionally, with regards to the PCCN report, I agree with the findings, but as Cam cited in the Michigan Daily article that was published, we really want to find a way to catalyze the process to ensure that we're not wholly relying on carbon offsets, because at the end of the day, carbon offsets are known as a cheat to hold institutions less accountable for the carbon emissions they emit. We also need to be viewing the issue of carbon neutrality through an environmental justice lens. It's important to recognize that the burdens of global warming are most seen on marginalized communities, and that happens right here, 40 minutes away from the University of Michigan in Detroit. So it's imperative that with every policy we make with regards to sustainability, we are keeping marginalized communities at the forefront of them.
All right, thank you. And finally, Sujin.
Thanks. So we believe that the University of Michigan must achieve carbon neutrality by 2030, not by 2040, as established by its current targets. The university must also reduce its reliance on carbon offsets to achieve carbon neutrality. CAM, which is the Climate Action Movement, as was just stated, is a vocal group of students and university affiliates fighting to accelerate the university's carbon neutrality goals. We aim to use this platform that they've built and use the resources of CSG to strengthen the movement that they've built and work with them to get this advocacy to the higher levels. We also believe that achieving carbon neutrality means a lot less if it's offset by the university's investment to fossil fuel companies. Nearly $1 billion of the university's endowment is currently still invested in oil and gas companies, and we call on the university to divest this portion as part of their dedication to achieving carbon neutrality. We also call on the PCCN to increase student input into the report, and we stand by these measures as part of the plan to push the university to achieve carbon neutrality by 2030. Not 40. Thank you.
Thank you. And turn it over to the Daily for question number 5.
Yeah. So mental health issues have been increasing within the student body due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the transition to online classes. Counseling and psychological services, also known as CAPS, have been criticized heavily for its long wait times and lack of accessibility for students. The Daily wrote an in-depth series in January of 2020 looking into issues within CAPS and found that they did not share many of the concerns that students had expressed to the university. A wellness days in place of a traditional week-long spring break has been criticized as an insufficient break from academics, and attention has been brought to the fact that U of M Dearborn had a 4-day weekend in place of their spring break. As remote operations continue and the university begins to transition back to in-person instruction, how will you work to prioritize mental wellness?
And Sujan is first.
Thank you. So again, I'm going to point people to the platform. There's a lot on this particular topic that I'm just not going to have time to fully get into here. But we think a lot of the most important things, or one of the most important things, is creating long-term support networks. So while an important mental health resource for students is CAPS, it remains a very short-term care option. Obviously, there are a lot of long-term ways that we can approach this problem, but for the sake of this question, I'm going to focus on two things, which is improving the continuity of care through this resource and improving diversity of CAPS counselors. CAPS in general experiences high turnover rates in its counselors. People see the same person once, maybe twice. Studies have shown that this is ineffective in cognitive behavioral therapy and other treatments for mental health disorders. And it's important for CAPS staff to remain diverse, so that students of all backgrounds can connect with a counselor who shares their life experience. And we will advocate strongly for greater diversity with regards to race, ethnicity, country of origin, gender, sexual orientation, religion, any personal identifier that people may find important in hiring CAPS counselors. Thank you.
Thank you. And Nithya is next.
I'll wholly acknowledge that the two wellness days we have are completely just a terrible idea. I think I was even more stressed on my wellness day than on a normal day. But with that being said, I've actually worked closely with Todd Savick, who's the director of CAPS, to look into implementing a CAPS counselor office hours model where students would be able to go in and out of CAPS office hours just like they would with any class, right? Furthermore, we would like to launch a task force to identify and secure bids from additional insurance providers to make mental health care more accessible. As Sujan mentioned, CAPS is a short-term option available to students. And for students who need that continuity of care, it's best that they have a long-term mental health professional to aid them. We also are looking to expand UHS and CAPS on North. Carla, my running mate, is an engineer and knows the struggles of living on North Campus and not having access to robust services that will aid the mental health of students on North. Finally, we also want to champion a new approach to improving CAPS with a focus on hiring staff from diverse backgrounds that cater to the needs of LGBTQ+ students, students of color, and international students. We need to be doing more to support the mental health care needs of our student body. And that's it.
Thank you. And Abner.
Thank you for that. So I can agree with Sujan and Nithya that those wellness days were not helpful at all. That being said, I thought about it for a while and thought a solution might be extending the academic year a week or two and implementing more wellness days throughout it, or a spring break or whatever. I understand that the university was trying to take care of its students given the pandemic. So I'm sure this is a very plausible idea to implement a longer academic year with more wellness days spread out. I also want to work, my team and I want to work with faculty members and students to achieve a balance between workload and mental health. So I've had various professors check in on me personally and one-on-one, and those are very valuable professors. So I think we need more of that. And so maybe training professors to identify certain behaviors or just implement that as a necessity. And as for CAPS, when I first came to the university, I thought that the little office that they had was temporary. The little annex office that they have, just because it literally was a bungalow. I always thought they were constructing a bigger, newer building for CAPS. So I say, why not? We definitely need to increase CAPS services, such as
that is time. Next to the daily for question number 6.
CSG has a nearly unmatched ability to bring concerns to administrators. One example of this is that the CSG president has the opportunity to address the Board of Regents at their meetings. Students have pushed for their voices to be heard among administrators on issues ranging from tuition costs to carbon neutrality, and one group has advocated for a student position on the Board of Regents. Considering CSG's access to administration, how will you help amplify the voices of fellow students to university leadership?
And Nithya is first for this question.
I've actually worked closely with some of the regents in implementing my menstrual product working program to increase accessibility to menstrual products. Additionally, we have stated on our platform that we will be campaigning to put a student on the Board of Regents. I also think that the executive board of CSG itself allows people increased accessibility to the regents, and we want to include student activists on our executive board. In our platform under the university consciousness portion, we have stated our commitment to creating liaison positions with GEO, with Sunrise, and with other longstanding student activist groups to ensure that everyone has accessibility to the administrators and can advocate for their needs.
Thank you. Next is Abner.
I believe that students do need their voices heard. So as soon as I started running, I kept getting a lot of texts and emails regarding this, and that message came across very thoroughly. It's, if you are capable of obtaining this position, I want my voice heard, more or less. That being said, I've also studied what works and what doesn't throughout the University of California system. So if you guys aren't familiar, the University of California system is very large and contains various schools with people from across the world. So I particularly paid attention to UCSB and UCLA, where they did have a student member on the Board of Regents. So I definitely want to copy that. However, I also feel 8 representatives should do the job for spreading across grade levels and in-state, and then the other 4 spreading across grade levels being out of state. I believe that should cover equitable identities for the university. So,
okay, thank you. And finally is Sujin.
Thanks. So as the other candidates have said, it really is long overdue that we have a permanent voting position for students on the Board of Regents. UT Austin, University of California have some kind of position to this regard. You know, as evidenced by the 2%, 1.9% tuition increase, the $50 COVID fee, the Board of Regents makes really important decisions that affect the lives of every UM student. It's only fair that students have input in those decisions and that we know what's going on. Our campaign chair, actually, Annie Minton, she's a founder of the organization called Students Demand Representation. It's an advocacy group dedicated to getting a voting student position on the Board of Regents. She did a lot of work on that over the summer. And as the only campaign here endorsed by GEO, we really are confident in our ability to advocate for these demands and to get a voting student position on the Board of Regents. We want to reimagine CSG as a source of collective bargaining for students. And this is one of the most important initiatives we think CSG can undertake in this coming year. Thank you.
Thank you. And now to the daily for question number 7.
A recent report published by DPSS has showed that sexual misconduct has increased over the past 5 years. The university has also been under scrutiny for multiple faculty members and administrators receiving sexual misconduct allegations, including former Provost Martin Filbers, who oversaw sexual misconduct reports, former university doctor Robert E. Anderson, and former SMT professor Stephen Ships, which was uncovered due to an in-depth investigation at the Michigan Daily. There are also multiple other names that would take me way too long to discuss during this question. There's also been an issue with cross-examination in the university and federal Title IX policies, as well as accusations of mishandling sexual misconduct cases and racial discrimination cases towards our current OIE director, Tamiko Strickman, while she was working in the same role at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. How will your campaign work to prevent sexual misconduct and support student survivors?
And first for this question is Abner.
so first and foremost, I don't believe that sexual harassment has any place. You know, this is definitely an issue that needs to be addressed. I mean, the recent events I've seen on social media is I keep seeing these messages about sexual misconduct, sexual harassment, and how women can't feel safe. The fact that that's a problem, it shouldn't be. It really hurts me to see that. So the fact that we're seeing it on campus does even more harm. So something that my partner Nicole and I want to do is ensure that professors are heavily screened, not just professors, but faculty members. I mean, at the end of the day, students need to feel safe on campus, whether that's a dining hall employee, whether that's the president, or whether that's anybody that represents the university as a whole. So everybody should feel safe on campus, no matter what.
Okay, next is Sujin.
Thank you. So the two things we'll focus on, I think the first one, surveying and screening faculty, as Abner just said, before hiring and during the tenure promotion process is extremely important. The university must survey and screen candidates during these processes, determine the person's history with sexual misconduct, their knowledge on how to prevent misconduct, and whether the individual has created or allowed a culture of misconduct in their workplace before. And this information must be an integral part of their hiring or promotion process. If you know this information, you have to act on it. Candidates should be rejected for any incriminating information found through this screen. And regarding student resources, we think SAPAC really is an invaluable tool for students and provides individuals with information regarding available resources and their options for reporting a sexual assault. We are committed to making sure SAPAC really is intersectional in its approach to supporting students. Sexual harassment involves a lot of different identities, and we really think this is something SAPAC should be focusing on, as well as expanding their resources for providing rapid response counseling to students and helping students find out what their immediate next steps are after a sexual harassment or assault has taken place. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally is Nithya.
I empathize first and foremost with all the survivors of sexual misconduct. That has no place at the University of Michigan or beyond. What we're going to do at Impact is we're going to develop and distribute a survey to track sexual misconduct on a large scale throughout the university. We actually have a master's student in psychology, Curtis, on our team who will aid us in distributing the survey. Additionally, we will be establishing a sexual misconduct task force with students, faculty, and administrators across campus departments and offices. Obviously, we will be ensuring that this task force has an intersectional approach. Finally, we want to increase funding to support primary to tertiary prevention through SAPAC. SAPAC has been doing a lot of the legwork in terms of both preventing sexual misconduct, but also supporting survivors. And we want to make sure that they have the resources to continue the great work that they've been doing and to expand on it as well.
Thank you. We're nearing the end of our 45-minute time window, so we're going to move on to closing statements. Each candidate will have 90 seconds, and Abner will give the first closing statement.
Thank you. So we discussed a lot of issues here, and I want to make sure that everybody watching and everybody here knows that their voices, regardless of who wins, will be represented in CSG. I believe that the topics that were talked about are integral to the university having a even more attractive future to applying students, current students, and alumni. So I hope that whoever wins really can see how important these topics are to everybody. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Next is Sujin.
Thanks. So this past year really has been the most difficult, demanding, destabilizing year for all of us. It has no doubt pushed many of us beyond our limits. And it's not lost on me that all of us are here today asking our community members to use their limited bandwidth or limited time to think about us and to listen to what we have to say. And I certainly don't want to speak for others here, but I think it really is safe to say that all of us are extremely grateful that everyone came out to listen today. And I just want to say thank you for using your time to do that. And I can't say for certain what the next year is going to look like. It will certainly be challenging in different ways, but we really are committed to working on behalf of students, no matter what that has to look like. We will fight for student representation on the Board of Regents because I know that is what we deserve. We will work with GEO to make those demands a reality because our campus culture begins and ends with our graduate students. And we will fight for anti-racist policies and initiatives, for disarming DPSS, and for everything else that we talked about tonight, because that is what the right thing to do is. And no matter what that has to look like, and regardless of what we have to do, we are committed to working on behalf of our community. And I can promise that we will do everything that we can to make those calls for action from me, from everybody else here tonight, a reality for our entire community. So I just want to say thank you all for coming. I know we all have very limited time, especially these days. And thank you for giving us our time and your attention tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And the final closing statement is Nithya.
Yeah, thank you to the Daily for hosting this debate. I'll conclude by saying that when navigating through a crisis of the sort that we have found ourselves in right now, few things matter more than quantifiable leadership experience. But with that being said, my team and I bring over 25 years worth of CSG experience alongside a long list of accomplishments, including establishing a $25,000 COVID relief fund, creating a program to pay for and therefore attract more Pell Grant eligible students to CSG, and expanding the Oxford Residence Hall bus service to improve central campus accessibility. If elected, I cannot wait to get working on creating a large fund to help students meet daily expenses, subsidize grocery delivery subscriptions, and increase funding to SAPAC, among many, many other things. Put simply, I cannot wait to impact Michigan. Thank you. And thank you to all the other candidates here today. I truly did enjoy hearing what you had to say and the work you've put into your platforms.
Thank you. And that concludes the 2021 CSG presidential debate. I'd like to thank Jasmine and Alex from the Daily and the three candidates. We're going to take a 10-minute break and we will start the vice presidential debate at 6:55. We'll see you then. All right, if everybody's back, we could get started. So, okay. This is the 2021 CSG Vice Presidential Debate. Just to remind everybody of the rules, there will be 90-second candidate opening statements and 7 questions from Jasmine and Alex of the Michigan Daily. And you'll have 1 minute to answer each question. And I'll determine the order of the statements and order in which you ask the questions. And then every candidate will have 90 seconds for a closing statement. I'd like to briefly introduce the 3 vice presidential candidates. Sam Bernstein is a third-year majoring in political science and history with minors in writing, and he's representing the Organized Party. He's originally from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Nicole Lynn is a junior from Grand Rapids, Michigan, double majoring in political science and international studies, representing the Change Party. And finally, Carla Voigt is a junior majoring in mechanical engineering and minoring in computer science, running with the Impact Party, originally from Grosse Pointe, Michigan. First will be the opening statements, and you'll each have 90 seconds. And by order of the draw, the first one to give the opening statement is Sam.
Yeah, hey everyone. As Aaron introduced, my name is Sam Bernstein. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a junior in LSA studying political science and history, and I'm thrilled to be running alongside Sujin to be the Vice President of Central Student Government. I've served in CSG for about 2 years now, and during my time as the chair of the COVID-19 task force, I've met with a number of university administrators through which I've learned how student input is often overlooked in COVID-related decisions. And in some cases, this was done to prioritize the finances of the university over students' lives. And as campus begins to return to normal over the coming year, many of the problems that affected students prior to the pandemic will remain. I'm running for Vice President of Central Student Government to advocate for big picture changes to university-wide policy, including total divestment of the endowment from fossil fuel companies and the demilitarization of the Police Department. Though I don't promise that these initiatives will be implemented by the end of my term, I do promise that we will work tirelessly to advance these efforts. Over the course of this debate, I'll discuss a number of ways in which we'll use the financial and institutional resources of CSG to lobby the administration and support the student advocacy groups that have been fighting for years to push the administration to adopt these initiatives. Thank you, and I look forward to the debate.
Thank you. And next is Nicole.
Hi, I'm Nicole. I use she, her, hers. I'm a junior studying political science and international studies with a minor in paleontology. As I was said before, a couple of things about me is that I'm on the board for SCOPE, the Student Community of Progressive Empowerment, as a public relations chair, where I work as an ally to undocumented/documented peers to increase awareness for resources, as well as extending resources for the undocumented/documented community on campus, as well as to high school seniors. I've been a volunteer for SAPAC for 2 years. I'm an RA at East Quad this past semester, which made me witness the flaws and complaints that have gone here unheard, which is why I want to run as vice president with Abner, but also because I believe in Abner's vision for the university. There's changes that need to be made in terms of DEI where communities are forgotten, such as the undocumented and documented community and the low income. As a student, I noticed the changes that CSG has failed to discuss due to lack of popularity. So Abner and I are dedicated to enduring that all communities are addressed and heard. I think that our platform can make that happen.
Thank you. And finally is Carla.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Carla Voigt, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm a junior studying mechanical engineering with a minor in computer science, and I'm running for the position of Vice President of CSG alongside Nithya. There's no doubt that this year has exacerbated issues already prevalent both on our campus and the world regarding affordability, mental health, and discrimination. However, the pandemic has also shown that our campus is capable of creating and accommodating new solutions to existing problems. For this reason, I believe that I'm uniquely qualified as a student in engineering to continue problem solving to better our campus. Additionally, I have proven that I'm committed to working for the student body on issues that are pertinent to our campus experience. Specifically, after serving as engineering representative for the past 2 years and speaker this year, I've increased Pell Grant eligible student representation on CSG with a stipend that compensates them for their work, created and served on the menstrual product working group to provide free menstrual products in on-campus buildings, and focused on sustainability issues by suggesting light pollution regulations and passing a commitment to carbon neutrality unanimously across the Big Ten as ABTS liaison. It is for this reason that I want to continue serving you as I advocate for our carbon neutrality goals and divestment in fossil fuels, expand UHS and CAPS to North Campus, and create a fund to assist students in paying expenses not included directly in our tuition, such as textbooks and childcare. With the dedicated and diverse team Nithya and I have created, we feel confident that these goals and many others are within reach over the coming year. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'd like to turn it over to the Michigan Daily for question number 1.
In fall, we saw a strike from the Graduate Employee Organization, the union representing GSIs, in protest of the university's fall reopening plan. The CSG Assembly voted unanimously to support the strike and encourage students not to cross the picket line. Days later, resident advisors also went on strike, calling for stronger COVID-19 protocols. And within that same month, the Faculty Senate, effectively the voice of faculty members on campus, narrowly voted that they did not have trust in the U of M administration's ability to reopen campus safely. It is safe to say that we faced a tumultuous fall semester that sowed seeds of distrust among some students and campus leadership. How will CSG work to rebuild that trust under your administration while holding U of M leadership accountable?
And the question first goes to Carla.
Thank you for that question. So first and foremost, we stand with GEO in their strike this past semester. It was truly unfair of the administration to be asking them to risk their lives for the university to benefit from their risk. That being said, we hope to support GEO in their efforts, which is shown throughout our policies as well. And we want to stand with grad students in supporting them with a fund for childcare, as well as a Persons of Color Symposium. And additionally, in terms of the international students that you mentioned, we are hoping to create a task force on the Assembly that will better represent international students, as well as create a student affairs position on our executive team that will support them as we try to retract the international fee.
Thank you. And next is Nicole. You have 1 minute.
Thank you for the question. So for our platform, we plan on working closely with the GEO. I was actually part of the strike for the RAs. It was pretty hard and hectic, and it's very disappointing what the university did to the GEO, and it was still disappointing how they settled with the RAs. It was not enough. So we plan to implement some type of partnership with GEOs and working with them closely to really ensure that that won't happen again. I think the student body can really trust in Aberdeen because we are just like normal students. We have connections with individuals outside of CSG. So I think we're more relatable. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, on this question is Sam.
Yeah, as the only campaign that is proudly endorsed by the Graduate Employees Organization, we're excited to look forward to looking into ways in which we can use the resources of the executive branch to advocate for student advocacy groups, including GEO. Our vision for CSG is to reimagine it as a source of collective bargaining on behalf of all students, in which we can use the leverage and institutional power of CSG to lobby towards the administration and advance the demands put forward by GEO, by CAM, and a number of other advocacy groups on campus. Some of the ways in which we'll do this is to use the behemoth budget of the executive branch, which is somewhere around $150,000 every semester, and use that to not only pay the members of the executive branch, but also to establish a student activism coordinator fund in which various groups that would qualify would be able to request funding in emergency situations from that fund. And we would also create an executive commission dedicated exclusively to graduate student policy and coordinating directly with the Graduate Employees Organization.
Thank you. And now turn it over to Daly for question number 2.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. So since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, all university business and academic work has been transferred completely online. The Daily released an article discussing the technology barriers of students from rural areas and low-income communities. Food insecurity and housing insecurity has also been an issue for students living on campus as well, since there is not a local grocery store within walking distance on campus, and the average rent price of off-campus housing is very expensive compared to other Big Ten universities. Students' financial situations have also changed due to the pandemic, ranging from family members losing their jobs or medical bills occurred from contracting the virus or other health issues. How will you work to make the university equitable and affordable for all students?
And Nicole is first with this question.
Thank you, Jasmine, for the question. So with our policy, our platform, we are planning to implement a basic needs vending machine for food insecurity students and other hygienic products. We think that no students should have to worry about this. We plan to continue and complete ongoing projects like the Maize and Blue Cupboard. And we plan to, with the COVID response, it was a failure from the university. So we hope to really implement and just strengthen, like be able to work alongside students with the needs.
Okay, next is Sam.
Yeah, so as I mentioned in my answer to the previous question, the executive branch of the central student government is quite large. It's usually around $100,000 to $150,000 each semester. And our number one policy priority that we would seek to implement as soon as we are elected is working to find ways to compensate the dozens of people that work in the executive branch. This has a number of positive impacts, chief of which is advancing goals of equity and being able to bring in people into CSG that otherwise would not be able to, either through working a part-time job or not having the time to dedicate to an extracurricular activity. Not to mention it would likely boost the productivity and outcome of those who are working on policy in the executive branch. And for those who don't know, the executive branch has dozens of policy advisors and chairs of executive commissions, not to mention cabinet level officials that work, many of whom 10, 15, 20 hours a week in an unpaid capacity. So our number one goal is to pay those officials. As far as other things we can do to advance affordability, another top priority of ours is to seek to develop relationships with Ann Arbor City Council members and lobby them to build more housing and to make Ann Arbor a more affordable place to live for all of University of Michigan students.
Okay, and finally is Carla.
Thanks, Aaron. Sam is right in saying that the executive branch has a very large budget. That being said, we think that all of that money should be spent on supporting the student body rather than our team. We will be directing that money into a fund that is going to support students outside of tuition payments. As well, we want to increase food delivery on campus, and we will be creating a subsidy program for students that hope to secure food delivery to their house. Additionally, we want to expand the Maize and Blue Cupboard, especially an emphasis on expanding that resource to North Campus. And we also want to address the mental health impact that COVID has had on our student body over this semester. And with that, we want to increase CAPS funding and ensure that students, especially minority students, are getting the support that they need.
Thank you. And now to the Daily for question number 3.
Yeah, so on Friday, the university announced it would have a fall reopening that would involve bringing back more students to campus than this semester. The plan included most classes, excluding large lectures, being taught in person, dorms opening at 80%, and some fans being allowed to attend sporting events as public health guidance allowed. Do you support this plan, and do you have any concerns about what fall will look like under this plan?
And Sam is first on this.
I'm eager to look forward to listening to the public health experts who will determine whether it's safe to do this or not. I do understand that there are calls for an in-person commencement ceremony. And while I think these are really real important concerns, I mean, my brother graduated high school during the pandemic, and he was sadly unable to attend an in-person commencement ceremony. I think it's important to note that any of these activities, whether it's a football game, a commencement ceremony, though it may be optional to attend these things, the nature of this public health crisis is not optional. If you were to contract COVID-19, you could be a vector and provide and spread it to those who are more vulnerable. Not to mention the employees who are staffing these events, it's not quite an option for them to attend those events either. So I think it's better to err on the side of caution and to avoid these gatherings if we can until we are fully in the clear on these things.
Okay, next is Carla.
Thank you. It is one of our highest priorities to work with the university in making sure that we will be returning to campus or staying online in a hybrid capacity that is the safest manner possible. This starts with vaccine literacy, ensuring that there is an equitable distribution on campus. And we will be doing that by informing students on what their options are and how they can best secure a vaccine. After that is done, we will make sure that our campus has enough vaccinations to return to campus. And if that is not the case, we will make sure that there is a timely decision made by the university administration on those plans so that the students returning or possibly not returning to campus will know what they need to do far before they are supposed to return to campus. As we saw last semester, it was very a time crunch, and we don't want to repeat that.
And finally, Nicole.
Thank you. As much as we all want to return back to in person, back to normal, that is simply not the safe or great idea to do. Saying a lot of lives were lost in the pandemic. So Avid and I plan to work closely with public health initiatives and public health experts to make sure that this plan is completely safe and is not unequal to individuals who can't afford vaccines. We will make sure that the money is not barrier for the vaccines, and just it's not fair for even for, like what Sam said, that the employees are, it's like the custodians are being forced to like work, and then students aren't following social distancing guidelines. So it's really imperative that we are all vaccinated. And so I hope to follow some public health experts and see what they feel about it.
Thank you. Turn it over to Daly for question number 4.
Yeah. So groups such as One University have been working to make resources on all 3 campuses at the University of Michigan equally accessible. A daily article uncovered that U of M Flint and Dearborn did not have a university health service system. And shortly following after that, U of M Flint chancellor announced they were going to start a pilot program for UHS service at their campus. There have also been calls to extend the Go Blue guarantee to U of M Flint and U of M Dearborn campuses as well. If elected, how will your campaign work to ensure equal access to quality education and student support services on all 3 campuses?
And for this question, Carla is first. You have 1 minute.
Thank you for this question. So we definitely support the Go Blue guarantee and agree that there should be equitable education across all 3 campuses. Every single one of us is a Wolverine, and we need to make sure that we are all receiving the same level of care. That being said, I support the pilot of a UHS at each of these institutions, and I think rather than necessarily going forward with a pilot, we should just really look into implementing a UHS at each of these places. Healthcare is first and foremost a human right. Everyone needs it, and this should be accessible across all of these campuses. Students need to be supported, especially in mental health and wellness. And honestly, I don't see why that isn't already implemented across these campuses, as the university should be supporting all of its students.
Thank you. And next is Nicole.
We also agree, so Abner and I agree that we should totally really equalize all the opportunities that the U of Ann Arbor campus has. And so we would work to equalize it to the Flint and Dearborn campuses, sorry. And so we would really, we want to make sure that education, the quality does not deteriorate. We noticed that for example, the cars, the security isn't as good, the buildings aren't as good. So we want to make sure to really be able that everyone, all Wolverines, including the Dearborn and Flint, will have the successful, embracive U of M culture.
Thank you. And finally is Sam.
Advocating for the Go Blue guarantee to the Flint and Dearborn campuses has been in our campaign platform since day one of the campaign. And for those who are watching, I encourage you to visit our campaign platform online, which you can do so by going to the link bit.ly/organize campaign. And you can see for yourself that advocating for the Go Blue guarantee across all 3 campuses has been a focal point of our campaign. But really, I think going beyond the Go Blue guarantee ought to be an important mission of Central Student Government. Our campaign manager, Annie Minton, was critical in advocating for pass no record COVID grading to be implemented at the Flint and Dearborn campuses. And she's played an important role in the One University campaign in uniting advocacy in that area from all 3 campuses. Not to mention, one of the candidates that is running in our campaign, Labiba Kazi, is a transfer student from the Dearborn campus and has also been quite involved in the One University campaign. Ultimately, we will, dedicate time and money and resources from Central Student Government to advocate for the Go Blue guarantee, ensure that it is brought to all 3 campuses, not just the Ann Arbor campus.
Thank you. Now question number 5, turn it over to the Daily.
Pass no record grading has been robustly implemented in the past 3 semesters in ways that it hasn't before. Undergraduates can choose to mask their grades and show only a pass or a no record COVID grade after final grades have been distributed. They can also withdraw from classes without a W on their transcript through the final days of classes. And in normal years, there are certain restrictions that would stop pass-fail grading, such as for LSA students on the 2nd or 4th semester language requirement, and also for many major classes that have now been waived due to the pandemic. How has the implementation of these policies impacted your views on grading, and how do you see these policies or some form of them having a place at the university after the pandemic?
And for this question, Nicole is first.
Thank you for the question. So for our platform, we will continue to fight for increased emergency relief, including the no record /pass grading system. We think that from our own personal experience that the grading system that is implemented, that we can choose to uncover or cover the grades, has decreased students' stress levels and it made them psychologically happier. So we plan to increase that, and we know that the effects of the pandemic go beyond just this year and half of last. We know that it is for the future, and we plan to increase the efforts and to prolong it. Thank you.
Thank you. And next is Sam.
Yeah, so I think during this past year, students across the university began to see Central Student Government as a source of advocacy, as it was closely tied to bringing about pass no record COVID grading in the first place. And it was also through that advocacy that brought us pass no record COVID grading that students like me who have been involved in CSG and students outside of CSG have realized that big changes on campus can only happen if you work with the university administration and push them to make these necessary changes. I mean, of course, I support pass no record COVID grading becoming a permanent fixture. And of course, I will, use my platform as vice president of CSG to hope that to make that a reality, though it is more likely than not that it will not become a permanent fixture of this university. So with that in mind, I think we need to do more to make grading more accessible and more understanding of mental health concerns. Something that that was a reality before the pandemic was instituting an optional pass-fail grading scheme for the 4th semester language requirement in the College of LSA. And that's certainly something that we're going to advocate for. But to be clear, I'm in full support of a permanent pass no record COVID grading scheme, and I will do everything that I can as vice president of CSG to ensure that that becomes a permanent fixture of the university's grading scheme.
Thank you. And finally is Carla.
Thanks. So I think we can go about this in a two-pronged approach. First, the pass-fail option is definitely something that we could try to implement in the future. And I think that the real way to do this is not allow it for all classes across the board, but that you're given a couple classes that you are allowed to pass fail, but that are within your major instead of only the classes that are currently allowed outside of your major. I think that we have seen, like was mentioned before, that this has greatly increased or rather removed some of the stress that students have had. And I think that we should continue with programs that are improving mental health on campus, and we should continue that advocacy to improve mental health by supporting CAPS and making sure that there is equal CAPS on North Campus and that we also have private therapy options available to us.
Thank you. And now to the daily for question number 6.
Disability services has been an important issue talked about on campus recently. The Daily article recently showed issues with the disability services for graduate students, citing a lack of communication on where to find information and a lack of accessibility for important topics that are essential to graduate studies, such as thesis and research. And CSG has also worked to adding audio descriptions in classes in order to help disability students and students who need those services. There has also been issues with professors accepting accommodation forms for classes and just more clarity on how the disability services work on campus. If you are elected, how will you ensure that students who need disability services will have clear and equitable equitable process on how to access those needs?
And Sam is first with this question.
Yeah, I think the issues we've seen with difficulties in accessing transcripts or, live transcriptions of Zoom recordings, or the inconsistencies we see across different classes. You might take one class that offers X and a different class that offers Y in terms of technology systems, is part of a broader problem that predated the pandemic, which has to do with outdated and difficult to use and access technological systems. I'm looking at you, Wolverine Access, in which it looks like it was designed in 2005. And it's funny, for the university that has one of the best computer science and engineering programs in the country, we have some of the oldest and most outdated technology systems to help our students. And so I think a lot more needs to be done in this realm. More money needs to be spent, and it's incumbent upon the next administration of CSG to push for those changes. As was mentioned earlier in the debate, one of the big privileges afforded to the president and vice president of Central Student Government is being able to meet regularly with the president and meet regularly with the Board of Regents. And I assure you that if we're elected, pushing for more modern, easy to use technological systems such as Wolverine Access and Canvas will be at the top of our list.
Thank you. Next is Carla.
Thank you. So first and foremost, we want to start within CSG. We are planning to create a chair of disability accommodations on the executive branch and also a disability task force to look into ways that we can support our disabled students on campus. We additionally plan to make a caretaker fund so that there are opportunities for students to get extra support that they need and that those students will be paid. And lastly, we want to address the issue with SSD forms. We think that filling these out every single semester is unnecessary, and the best way to do that is just have a one-time upload so that you can fill out your SSD form, and then every semester following, you don't have to worry that you will be accommodated for the in the ways that you need to be.
Thank you. And finally is Nicole.
So regarding the students with disabilities, we would also increase the awareness of it. I know that a couple of my friends who just made aware of what the community does or what the organization does. They didn't know about it. They wish they knew about it earlier in freshman year. So with Abner and I's platform, we hope to increase awareness and what it entails and making it part of our freshman orientation, our methods. And also we will invite student organizations that support students with disabilities. There's already perfectly capable student organizations that can help us represent a better student population.
Thank you. And now to the daily for question number 7.
Yes. So 3 weeks after groups of paid students, adult volunteers, and police officers began patrolling the streets as visible reminders for students to take COVID protocols seriously through a program known as Michigan Ambassadors. The program ended after racial justice groups publicly denounced it. In an op-ed published in the Daily, the Black Student Union, the United Asian American Organizations Executive Board, La Casa, and the Arab Student Association E-Board voiced concerns over policing of communities of color and that the ambassadors lacked appropriate anti-bias training. The op-ed said that the groups felt disheartened after meeting with CSG to voice their concerns and then not seeing their concerns reflected in the policy. CSG President Amanda Kaplan and CSG Vice President Saab Nandigama released a statement signing on to the op-ed, saying they felt, quote unquote, angry and betrayed by the university leadership for including armed officers, and that the changes they had pushed for were not implemented in the ways they hoped that they would be. When given a seat at the table in shaping policy at the university, what importance will you place on elevating marginalized voices? And perhaps more importantly, what work have you already done to build trust with marginalized groups on campus?
And this question goes first to Carla.
Thanks. So first and foremost, we wholeheartedly disagree with the approach that administration took at the beginning of this year regarding the Michigan Ambassador Program. There's no reason to bring more police to campus. I think that we should really advocate for the disarmament of AAPD and DPSS on our campus so that we can make our students, specifically our minority students on campus, feel safer. Additionally, we want to increase pathways programs that will bring more diverse students to campus, as well as diversify our employees in the CAPS program so that there are better support systems for our diverse communities. I know that you mentioned what work we have done in the past. Specifically for me, I implemented a Pell Grant eligible program on CSG so that our students that are working for central student government can still be equitably paid for their work, and thereby diversifying CSG and in their representation.
Thank you. And next is Nicole.
Thank you. So we also denounced the Michigan Ambassador Program. We need to demilitarize the DPSS and AAPD, and also cut ties with ICE from the university. I know a couple of our undocumented/documented friends from Scope, they were concerned with the ties with ICE and with adding more guns and security and adding more of that kind of service is not the solution to our problems. It just makes things worse. It makes our anxieties higher and is unnecessary. So we denounce that, and we will work well closely with student organizations, like we said before, to make the policies that they would agree with. I know from personal experience that we have talked to newspaper outlets like the RM Daily, and we were misconstrued in our information. So we will work closely and make our policies and show it to them before it's officially released. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Sam.
Yeah, I think most Michigan students can agree that the ambassador program, that while perhaps to some extent good intentioned, was a very bad idea from the get-go. The goal is to decrease the presence of armed DPSS officers on campus, not increase them. And a pandemic doesn't change that. But with that, I think it strikes at a broader issue with central student government, which is the lack of representation from a variety of communities within central student government. If you look at membership surveys from years prior, CSG tends to be far whiter, far wealthier, and far less representative of the University of Michigan student body. One of our top priorities that I mentioned earlier in the debate is to use the large budget of the executive branch, or at least a part of it, to pay people who are involved in our executive branch. This is something that CSG already does with a small number of positions. Some people in CSG are able to receive compensation for Michigan's minimum wage, but our goal is to expand that and to bring in people who might not have a chance otherwise to participate in CSG.
Thank you. Running a few minutes ahead of schedule, so we have time for one final question, as long as it exists. And so turn it over to the Daily for our 8th and final question.
Yeah, so thank you for the last question. So the central student government receives at least $10 from every student in the student body. Many of the proposals in CSG require extensive funding, and there are financial requests at almost every assembly meeting. In the past, there have been budget issues where $9,000, around $9,000, has been misplaced in the budget, and funding for providing LSAT tutors was not properly distributed to those involved in that program. How will your campaign work to share transparency about CSG's use of funds with the student body?
And Nicole is first on this question.
Thank you for the question. So we will plan to rearrange the money to support student organizations and student populations that really need the money, especially CAPS. We really want a lot of the money towards CAPS and to really increase counselors and also mental health initiatives. We know that our CAPS's capacity, which is not their fault, is very limited, and students should not have to wait or have bad counselors or wait times that prevents them from getting help from what they need. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Sam.
Yeah, I think this is a really important question, because something that people often don't understand or know about CSG, something I'm finding as I'm talking to people in the campaign, is that they don't know that $10 of their money, of their tuition, goes to central student government, and that it's essentially taxes, in effect, that are paying for the services that CSG provides. Not to mention, as I've mentioned multiple times throughout the debate, we have a very, very large budget. The entire organization, all wings of it combined into one, it's about $1 million every year, or somewhere in that ballpark. And I think CSG owes it to the students it serves to be far more transparent with how that money is spent, and to be far more generous with providing it to other organizations that can that are already doing the things that we advocate for, which is why one of our top priorities is to create a student activism fund, which we would have money go into, and a number of qualifying activism orgs would be able to pull money out of if they request to do so. Another thing is to expand the money that goes to the Student Organization Funding Committee, which is the largest source of funding for student orgs on campus. It has about over $100,000 each semester that is doled out to a number of student orgs. And the executive branch is able to have control over how that money is doled out to some extent. And so our hope is to use that to provide it to orgs that are making a positive impact on campus and advancing goals of equity and inclusion.
Thank you. And finally is Carla.
Thank you. So like I've previously stated, we want to route this large amount of money back to the students in several different ways. The first way that we want to implement a fund that will be for students to apply for expenses that they are incurring that are not related to tuition, especially specific ones to schools, such as nurses need other support in buying resources so that they can go to class, and textbooks as well across all schools. Additionally, we want to support grocery delivery services, and in general, we want to support student activism on campus by working with other activism groups and providing funding for their projects. Especially, we want to work hand in hand with other student governments that are already attacking these issues on campus and help support them in their initiatives. And lastly, we want to route some funds into SAPAC and CAPS, as these are definitely resources that we want to expand on our campus. Just in general, we want to support the students with our large budget instead of allocating or losing money to things that are smaller and less beneficial to students.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to closing statements. Each of you will have 90 seconds for your closing statement, and Carla will go first.
All right. It has been such an honor to have served the student body as an elected representative in CSG in each year of my undergraduate career. Having been an engineering representative and Speaker of the Assembly, I bring the legislative experience that, when paired with Nithya's 3 years in the executive branch, makes us the right choice to impact Michigan. That said, we recognize that no president and vice president can accomplish their goals alone. I want to reiterate then that a vote for Nithya and I is also a vote for a diverse team of 15 students with extensive experience working on CSG and negotiating with the university's administration. In combination with our collective CSG experience, our team also brings a diverse set of student perspectives that understand the issues the student body faces each day. Furthermore, a vote for the two of us is a vote for a larger student activism coalition on campus. If elected, Nithya and I will appoint liaisons to all major student governments on campus, along with the GO, Sunrise Movement, Students of Color Liberation Front, and other influential student organizations to encourage information exchange and collaboration. The problems before the student body are complex and multidimensional. The legacy of an impact administration then will be the building of an army of students that works hand in hand to overcome any and all challenges. I hope that Nithya and I have shown you that we have the experience and humility needed to represent your interests in central student government. Thank you so much for attending this debate and listening to us speak on issues that we feel are important to us, and make sure to vote on March 24th and 25th for your election.
Thank you. And Nicole is next.
First of all, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your time. I know that midterms is hitting us pretty hard, including assignments, so I'm going to keep this relatively short. So thank you for listening to us, the vice presidential debate as well as the presidential debate. And I think regardless of what happens in the election, I think that the student body is in good hands with our good candidates. So rest assured.
Thank you. And finally is Sam.
Like many students, I've watched over this past year in frustration and disbelief as President Schlissel and the University Board of Regents made a number of questionable decisions in response to this pandemic. From raising tuition to ending the September student labor strikes by force rather than working to meet their demands, and failing to provide readily available asymptomatic testing for all students, which ultimately contributed to more than 15% of undergrads contracting the virus since March of last year. I also watched as many of these decisions were made behind closed doors with little to no input from the students who would be directly impacted by them. I'm running for Vice President of Central Student Government to strengthen the voice of students and student advocacy groups that have been pushing for change to university-wide policies for years now. Sujin and I envision central student government as a source of collective bargaining on behalf of all U of M students, which is why we're proud to be the only campaign running in this election that is endorsed by the Graduate Employees Organization, the university's largest student labor union. If elected, Sujin and I will work to use the financial and institutional power of CSG to support the organizations that do the most to enhance the student experience at the University of Michigan. Thank you all so much for coming to tonight's debate, and I encourage you to get out to vote next Wednesday.
Thank you, and thanks to all the candidates, both the 3 vice presidential candidates from this debate and the 3 candidates from the first presidential debate. I'd like to again thank Jasmine Lee and Alex Herring from the Michigan Daily for asking all of the very thoughtful questions. I'd like to thank Jim Hoppus, Brittany Banks, and Kayla Rothstein for all their help in planning this debate over the last several days and weeks. And as some of the candidates have also mentioned, make sure to vote on March 24th and 25th. Thank you for attending.
Great job, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes, great job.
Oh, we can't hear you, Jim.
Oh, just thank you to everyone. It went really well, so I really appreciate all of your work. And have a good night.
Yeah, have a great night.
Take care.
All right.
You too.